put our life savings into the business, £50,000 at the time, and literally saw that money go down the drain in the space of 6 months. So I ended up losing £50,000 a month and running out of money again, down to the last £10,000.
Today on All About Business, I'm joined by Richard Harpin, one of the UK's most successful business leaders and the founder of HomeServe, which he grew into a FTSE 100 company before selling it in 2022. We'll be exploring what it means to grow a company that lasts, from finding the right growth mindset to backing the next generation of entrepreneurs, to discussing his book, How to Make a Billion in 9 Steps.
Copying homework is bad. In business, I would say it's essential. Find somebody that's got a model that works, copy it, do it a bit better, and then think big. But it's not about the idea, it's about making it happen.
It's about the execution of the idea.
Absolutely. We've gone from 0 to 8.5 million. And literally with the last £10,000 before the business was due to go bust, 38 customers sent in a cheque for £50, a 3.8% take up from direct mail. I remember getting on my office desk in front of those 23 people that all thought they're about to be made redundant and said, yes, we've cracked it.
How did you sort of pivot?
Welcome to All About Business with me, James Reed, the podcast that covers everything about business, management, and leadership. Every episode, I sit down with different guests who've bootstrapped companies, masterminded investment models, or built a business empire. They're leaders in their field, and they're here to give you top insights and actionable advice so that you can apply their ideas to your own career or business venture.
Today on All About Business, I'm really delighted to welcome Richard Harpin to the studio. Richard is the founder of HomeServe, a home emergency repairs and improvement company. HomeServe was founded in 1993 as a joint venture with South Staffordshire Water, and the company offered subscription-based home emergency repairs. Under Richard's leadership, HomeServe grew into a multinational business operating in the UK, Canada, France, the US, and several other countries. It was listed on the London Stock Exchange and later became part of the FTSE 100. And in 2022, Richard agreed to sell HomeServe to Brookfield Asset Management for £4.1 billion. So this is an amazing business journey I'm looking forward to sort of asking about, Richard. You eventually stepped down as chairman of HomeServe just earlier this year in January. Since then, you've found time to publish a best-selling book and take on several other jobs, which I'll also ask you about, Richard. Firstly, welcome. I mean, this HomeServe journey, I mean, you're amongst a few British people who have actually started and built billion-pound businesses. And I want to ask you, how did that begin? And what were the sort of key moments, in your view, that made that happen?
Yeah, I'd always wanted to be an entrepreneur and trying to find the big idea that could work. And I've been working at Procter & Gamble in marketing, buying houses in Newcastle. And the biggest problem was Friday night, tenants would ring saying water pouring out of a radiator or blocked drain in the backyard, and you could not get a plumber for love nor money in Newcastle on Friday night. They're all out drinking.
So just to make it clear to everyone, you're from Newcastle, that area, huh? Or Northumberland?
Originally a Yorkshireman, born in Huddersfield, but moved to Newcastle at age 5.
Right, okay. And that's where Procter & Gamble have a big base. So
yes.
You were working for them and you were doing a sort of side hustle doing rentals. Is that what you
wanted to keep my entrepreneurial eye in? Yeah. And so property management and letting and buying houses. And that was the opportunity, a shortage of young professional shared accommodation in Newcastle at the time.
Right. Now, you reminded me of a sort of plumbing disaster that happened to us many years ago. We had to ring, and it was someone called Emergency Man came and did not do a good job. But your HomeServe...
And probably ripped you off with a big repair bill.
Yeah, it wasn't a happy experience. I still remember it. Go on. So you saw a space in this market.
So got into it, called it A1 Fast Fix. We'll be at the front of Yellow Pages section for plumbing and heating.
Right.
Put our life savings into the business, £50,000 at the time. And literally saw that money go down the drain in the space of 6 months. The issue is people only have a plumbing emergency every 5 years. So
Right.
there's no repeat business. Cost of Yellow Pages was high. So the model didn't work.
So Yellow Pages, for younger listeners, was like a great big thick book in which business listed itself, and that was where people turned to look for services of this sort.
And
It's a bit
now,
like the web in the old days.
yeah,
It was
now
equivalent,
gone
yeah.
online and to
Yeah.
businesses like Checkatrade that I'm involved in.
So A1 fast fix, you burnt your money. So how did you sort of pivot? I mean, that appears to be what happened next, because HomeServe obviously was a slightly different proposition.
Yeah, it was to try and find a winning business model, determined to stick with the business, and managed to secure £500,000 of investment from a little water company north of Birmingham called South Staffs. But they wanted 52% of the business. We'd run out of cash, so that was the only option. And then thought, great, I'll grow the business and grow it to profitability, get economies of scale. And guess what? Every month the business grew. And because we got the wrong business model, the break-even line got further and further away. So I ended up losing £50,000 a month and running out of money again, down to the last £10,000. And we're taught at school that copying homework is bad. In business, I would say it's essential. Find somebody that's got a model that works, copy it, do it a bit better, and then think big.
Right.
And I'm an optimist. And when we'd nearly run out of money, somebody called me and said, there's this little water company in Surrey, and they've developed like a plumbing insurance scheme. I got in my car and drove down from Birmingham down to Sutton in Surrey, and interviewed some of their customers on the high street, got them into a focus group, said, what do you like about the product, what do you not like about it, and designed our own plumbing insurance cover.
Right.
And literally with the last £10,000 before the business was due to go bust, we sent out 1,000 mail shots, branded as South Staffs Water. 38 customers sent in the cheque for £50, a 3.8% take up from direct mail. I remember getting on my office desk in front of those 23 people that all thought they were about to be made redundant and said, yes, we've cracked it.
So
We've
you
made
knew
it.
that 3.8% was
That was
work.
great for
Yeah.
for direct mail.
Exactly, yeah.
And almost the rest is history. We went back to all of the water companies that said no to investment, the bigger ones, and said, how about signing up on what we'd call today an affinity branded model? We'll use your customer base, we'll use your brand, we'll run the plumbing service, we'll collect the membership fees, they'll be our customers. And that was the magic model. Went around and signed up most of the UK water companies, and that was how we cracked it.
So that's an amazing turnaround. So you're advocating here, don't be too proud to plagiarize, copy other people if you can see that they're doing something successful.
Absolutely. And that little water company, Sutton Water Plumbing Insurance, we 4 or 5 years ago, we went and bought them.
Right. So now part of your group.
And I think they'd gone from 30,000 customers at the time, and it diminished down to 20,000, and we'd gone from 0 to 8.5 million. So it's not about the idea, it's about making it happen.
It's about the execution of the idea.
Absolutely.
So tell me, what were the key elements of your approach to execution that made you get to 8.5 million when they did not? I mean, what did you actually focus on?
I think a key milestone in the business was saying, I wonder whether this model would work in a foreign country. And first we went to France.
Right.
And when people say, why France? Because it's notoriously difficult to employ people there, really difficult employment laws. And I joke and say, because if we make it work in France, it will work anywhere in the world. The reality was that South Staffs Water was 30% owned by, at the time, General Deseaux.
Right.
They were the big water company in France. Still took a year to persuade them that we should do a deal with them. And it was a joint venture. And they said, oh, it won't work like you made it work in the UK. We don't want you to use the General Deseaux brand. Come up with a new name. Domio. That sounds more like a pizza delivery business than a plumbing insurance business.
Yeah.
And we want poster advertising and newspaper advertising, which of course didn't work. A year in, just when we're about to say we failed internationally, we better go back to being a UK business, we said, let's just go back to that original model that we did in the UK several years earlier, direct mail, branded as the water company, as General des Eaux Service. And guess what? It worked.
Was it the same ratio, 3.8% or whatever, something like that?
About a 2% take up, but
So slightly less,
2%,
but
anything over 1% is really, really good.
For direct mail, that's going to work. And so you just scale up when you get that information. So how did you solve the problem of the Newcastle plumbers on Friday night? Well, I mean, how did you make sure you had the workforce available to deliver the service?
Combination of, in the early days, it was really good subcontractors, checked and vetted, fixed prices for doing different types of work. And then more latterly, and in the UK to start with, we then employed the plumbers and the heating engineers. Meant that we could have branded vehicles as HomeServe, the red vans that are out there across the UK today, and with a backup of subcontractors for periods when it was really, really busy.
So you were able to do that because by scaling up, you had enough business for them.
Exactly.
To keep them busy. So they weren't sitting.
And a lot of these plumbing emergencies were things that people could turn off the stopcock, and we'd be around within an hour or two to do the full repair.
Right. What if doing good was the smartest business move you'll ever make? I'm James Reed, CEO of Reed. In my new book, Karma Capitalism, I reveal how being a Philco, that's a company where at least 10% of shares are owned by a charitable foundation, has become our business superpower. Companies like Lego, IKEA and Novo Nordisk share the same Philco identity. These businesses last longer, inspire loyalty, and make a bigger impact on society. This book is part manifesto, part practical guide. Karma Capitalism is available now at karmacapitalism.org. Being a good business is good business. So this is a brilliant story. I mean, what I'm hearing though is you were several times close to sort of falling off the cliff, but you didn't quit. And what I'm also hearing is you kept looking for that little difference that would make it move from failing to succeeding. I mean, it seems like the small differences can make very big differences. Is that what you're saying? Is that?
And I think the key thing is sticking with the model. So as we grew internationally, the key bit was don't change the model. Keep it as similar to the UK as you possibly can. Otherwise, HomeServe today is in 10 countries, including Japan. If the model was 20% different in every country, recipe for complexity and disaster.
So I guess water's the same in every part of the world. I mean, it behaves in the same way. It has similar disasters.
Ownership of the pipes can change a bit, the pipes and the wires.
Yeah, but effectively, the jobs that you have to do are similar or the same. So the approach.
And then how we sign up customers varies country to country. So direct mail works particularly well in the UK, even better in America, pretty well in France. It doesn't work in Southern Europe. So they're a telesales culture rather than direct mail.
Well, they won't look at it. They won't.
No. And then the Germans, and we failed in Germany first time round, highly successful second time round. They want a very detailed direct mail pack because they read every word in the terms and conditions. The German sort of detailed culture.
So, and where's Britain sit on that spectrum? Nearer Spain or nearer Germany?
I'd say sort of in between the two.
Interesting. Yeah, that's very interesting. So you built this business and then it arrived in the FTSE 100, top 100 company in the UK. And then eventually you decided it was sold.
Yeah, I mean, a key part of it was we were sitting under a bushel of South Staff's Water, who were a listed company themselves.
Right.
And I was struggling to hire really good people in the early days. Why do we want to come and work for a subsidiary of a sleepy water company?
Right.
So I was determined that we needed to separate out from the parent water company. We'd outgrown their profits by about 2002, 2003.
So you were bigger than the parent at this point.
And so thought, how do we do that? And in the end, persuaded the board that we should demerge. So that was effectively doing an IPO in 2004 as HomeServe. The water company separated to its two listed companies. And I think with a market cap at the time, capitalization of about 300 million.
That was then. And then it went to 4.1 billion. So from South Staffordshire Water's point of view, this was an incredibly good investment. So other companies should be thinking about this sort of thing.
I think anybody that had bought shares at the time of the IPO, the flotation, would have got, by the time we sold, a 14 times return on the money, excluding the dividends that we paid out each year as well.
So taking your sort of mantra of copying, I mean, people listening with businesses should be thinking about how to repeat this type of model by their business having a few children, shouldn't they, in the sense of spawning other businesses?
Yeah, I remember early days of HomeServe, somebody came frantically running into my office, James, and said, this is outrageous. There's a company in India that have completely copied our model. Let's sue them. I said, absolutely not. Let's help them. Right. Because if they're really successful, then we'll buy them.
Yes.
And part of the model, particularly with HomeServe in America, is other utilities did copy us, but they never did it quite as well. So we'd knock on the door and say, we'll write you a big check to buy out your home assistance policy business. We'll then sign a 10-year marketing agreement, and it was win-win.
So that's how you grew in part?
Partly. It was mainly organic, but with about 40 smaller acquisitions that we bolted onto the organic growth.
So you've sort of totally flipped the idea of copying here, from being at school where, oh no, you mustn't do that, saying actually go and try it. And if someone copies you, say, that's great. How can we sort of embrace this?
Yes.
Lots of people call lawyers in at that point, which is interesting to me. So a totally new view on copying, which I like very much. Now, you've written a book, Richard, which I have here, How to Make $1 Billion in 9 Steps. This is published this year, I believe. And I'd like to know how to do this. What would be the first step of this 9-step journey to $1 billion?
Would be copy and pivot. Come up with your winning business model. Keep it really small. And the mistake that I made and many other entrepreneurs is think, I want to go really big too quickly before the model is proven out. If you keep it small, then ideally you're funding it through your own resources, bootstrapping, friends and family, and only once you prove the model and then you want to go big, that's maybe when you want to take some investment.
So make sure the model or the service really works before you scale up. That's the first step.
Yes.
See, I'm interested in this because we're investing in an AI recruiter at the moment. I don't know what small is. I mean, what's small in your mind in terms of keeping it small? How big an investment, or how many people, or what's the...
A few people, and trying to prove out the model with sort of tens of thousands of pounds ideally, rather than hundreds of thousands or millions.
Right.
And if you're copying a model and then making it better, then at least you know it works.
So sometimes it's better to go second, third or fourth rather than... I mean, they say pioneers are the people who get the arrows in their back, don't they? So, but sometimes they're the ones who win. So
I'm a big believer in second mover advantage. Let somebody else take the risk. I think that's particularly true with AI today.
Right.
Is that let others be bleeding edge and work out whether they're getting a return. Wait until somebody's proved out a particular application of AI and then jump on it and get the benefits.
So we should all be looking very carefully at what's emerging and seeing what's succeeding and saying, well, there's going to be more than one company doing that. Let's get in there.
Exactly right.
So that's your message. So that's sort of step one. What about step two? What's the next step we should be thinking about?
Would be about get some coachment. And what I mean by coachment is three things. One is everybody should have a paid business coach. Everybody should also have a unpaid mentor.
Right.
And to be honest, I didn't know the difference between the two until I went and trained as a business coach after I'd sold HomeServe, spent 10 days at INSEAD Business School in France.
Right.
And so the business coach is asking questions which tease out what's the problem or opportunity that you're trying to solve, what are the different options that you could take, but it's never coming to a solution, never suggesting anything as the coach. It's self-help.
So you now are practicing business coach as well, Richard?
Yes, but with mentoring as well.
Right.
And I think that's the magic model, is you understand the issue or opportunity somebody's trying to solve, go through the options, get a real understanding from listening, and then saying, right, we've done the coaching session. What I'm now going to think about in my tiny little brain is there something that I've come across in my 40 years in business that would help you with what you're trying to achieve?
And that's the mentoring part.
And that's the mentoring bit. Have you thought about X, Y, or Z? So that to me is the magic model of coachment.
So that's coach ment, as in coaching and mentoring.
Exactly.
That's where the word comes from. Okay, so it's both. So you're doing both. So when you say everyone should have a coach and everyone should have a mentor, that in your view, could be the same person in this case.
And ideally, what we need is more coach mentors in this country.
Right.
People like you and I that have got the grey hairs, that have made all the mistakes and can say, we want to help others get there. And ideally by going and training as a coach so that the mentee can get even more out of it.
So you did that. So INSEAD outside Paris, I went there last weekend, weirdly. My son is a student there. But INSEAD outside Paris offer sort of support in this area, do they?
10 days spread over about 8 months. 36 of us there learning on the course. Oh. And I think it also helped me to be a better chairman when I stepped down as the chief exec of HomeServe, to be able to step back and take a hands-off approach to helping the two guys that took over from me in HomeServe.
Right. How interesting. Oh, I'll look into that. That sounds like a good course. So since HomeServe, you've got some new lines of business. You're not one to stop working. I can see that. So you mentioned earlier business leader. You were looking at a rack of business magazines and you decided to do something. What was that, Richard?
This is really linked to too many mistakes I made, James, in HomeServe over the years. And the 9 things I know now that I wish I'd known at the start of my journey. And I think if we'd known those as a team, maybe we could have got there in half the time. So I was determined to get those messages out from writing and publishing my book. The key thing was also about how else could we get the messages out, and thought, what about if I had a business magazine? And that would be a way of inspiring and telling other stories of successful entrepreneurs, the who, and then the how. So how can I do it if I'm running a smaller business and follow those role models? So I went to W.H. Smith's, bought all the business magazines, and they're all American.
But you wanted to buy the business when you went to buy the magazine, I think.
Yeah.
But they were all American. You didn't want an American
Fortune, Time Magazine, Entrepreneur Inc., Harvard Business Review. And then there was this British magazine called Business Leader that didn't have the right content, but I knew the owner. So I rang him up and said, can I buy your business magazine? And agreed the deal. Then thought, we need a business podcast, we need a newsletter, and then back to copying and pivoting. We need a peer group business, like good American organizations, YPO and Vistage.
Yes. Putting
together 10 founder CEOs, and they learn from each other. They meet up 8 times a year. We thought that we should do it with a facilitator coach that is trained, that will help those 10 to get the most out of those meetings. And that sort of became the business leader offer.
So you're now creating these founder groups for people. So if someone wanted to join that.
Yeah, we've got loads of them up and running. And we're signing up new members to Business Leader, to our 9 Steps growth program, at the rate of 1 a day.
Fantastic. So where do you find business? I mean, apart from WH Smith's on the shelf, where do you find Business Leader if you want to sign up for one of those?
Go to our website, businessleader.co.uk. You will find Business Leader magazine in WH Smith's and most news agents, but all the information is there online. And
there's a very good podcast as well. Yeah. So that's a really good sort of contribution to the sort of entrepreneurial ecosystem in the UK. You said the content wasn't right when you bought it in the magazine. What was wrong with it, and what did you change?
It reported on mergers and acquisition deals that had happened, and some things in the business news that was sort of out of date. So we wanted to do it so it was more unique content, role models on who's done it, and then how did they do it. And one of the lists that we publish each year, and we did it for the first time this year, we'll do it again next year, is how many people in the UK built a business from scratch that's worth more than £1 billion and are still involved in some way. And there were 56 of those people. We've signed up 12 of those as Business Leader ambassadors and said to them, please will you give us 1 or 2 days of your time a year to help our members to come and talk at our annual conference taking place in Central Hall, Westminster on March the 26th. 750 founders and CEOs of mid-sized businesses all together, networking opportunity, learning opportunity, some of those other £1 billion business entrepreneurs on stage.
Fantastic. Well, that sounds like when's the date again? Tell us again. So
March the 26th.
March the 26th. Fantastic. So is that the first time you've done that, or is it?
No, we did it this year.
Yeah.
We had about 400 entrepreneurs, founders, chief execs. We want to make it even bigger and better. We did have 5 of those £1 billion entrepreneurs on stage across the day sharing their learnings. So we want to do even more of that.
So what stands out in your memory as a learning from that first session? Was there someone who said something you think, oh, I hadn't thought of that, or that's interesting?
I think it was about one of the biggest opportunities for mid-sized businesses is how we access more finance and more advice.
Right. So you're really focusing on what you call the mid-size. So you're not startups, but people have got going.
Yes. So we would define that in Business Leader as any business that's turning over more than £3 million and up to about 100 million. With the Mid-Market Council, which is an initiative that I sit on, which is backed by NatWest and helping engage with government and come up with policies that can help mid-market businesses to scale. The definition there is a business turning over between 10 and 100 million, or employing between 49 and 749 people.
So above that, you're a big business, are you?
Yes.
Right. Okay. You obviously decided to focus on this group for a particular reason. I mean, you see potential there, I'm guessing. And you see that they maybe have been underserved in the UK. Is that where you're coming from?
Yeah, I think the issue is that as a country, we've focused on startups.
Right.
And if you did a review of the media, there are 6 times more mentions of startups and small businesses compared to scale-ups. There is a lot more support for startup businesses. The startup loan scheme, over £1 billion lent to 100,000 businesses over the last 10 years. There is not scale-up financing.
Right. That is an obvious gap. I mean, why do you think that is?
Because I think we think short term in the UK. compared to our American counterparts, where it's longer term investment, bigger companies prepared to take patient capital and longer term return. And we're just looking at those. Well, how many new businesses have been set up in the UK? The stats that I have back for 2023, 316,000 startups and 309,000 closures.
Oh, really?
So actually,
that's not a big gap.
We got to be focusing on the 100,000 mid-sized businesses and helping them to become the next large companies. And we only have 7,500 large companies in the UK, like HomeServe, like Reed.
That's interesting. So you're saying from your gathering conference that access to finance was a very obvious issue that was shared. Do you see any new developments that give you hope or reason to hope in that space?
I do, but the availability of finance compared to the year 2000 is there's £15 billion a year less in term loans and £15 billion less in overdraft facilities. They've diminished down to only £3 billion a year. So we've got to get more money lent.
So that's a big drop.
That is a big, big drop.
So what gives you hope there? I mean, are people paying? This must be a change in the sort of appetite in banks, surely.
There's also the growth guarantee scheme.
Right.
And that means that banks can lend money, and if it goes wrong, then they can reclaim 70% of the cost of that from the government. That's a scheme that works really, really well in America, Germany and France, but we do only a tiny bit of that. Since the scheme began, there have only been 13,000 loans under that guarantee scheme and only 2 billion of lending. So we need to expand that. The maximum lending is £2 million, and you can only be part of the scheme if you're running a business that's turning over less than 45 million a year.
Right, but that growth guarantee scheme is underutilized, you're saying?
Yes,
so
and we need to remove the caps so it would apply to the whole of those mid-market companies.
Yeah, and who would have to make the decision to remove the cap?
That would be government. It's a government scheme.
Right.
So we are engaged with Department of Business and Trade talking about that. The other area is only 21% of businesses that are looking to get finance engage a financial advisor.
Really?
So that needs to be much higher. The reason why they don't is they say, well, where do I get one from? Who should I use? So if we were able to put together an advisory network, make it more prominent, then we would get more advice out to those businesses so they can root out different sources of finance.
It's a fair question, though. Where do you go? How do I get one? I mean, what happens at the moment? Are you creating this network?
We're hoping to work with Department of Business and Trade to put together an advisory network of these people. Are out there.
Yes.
But it's they work for some of the smaller accountancy practices. There are self-employed business finance advisors. There are a couple of networks, but nobody knows about them.
That would be very helpful, wouldn't it? So it seems like there's capital there, but it's not being accessed, or it's not clear how to get to it.
That's part of the problem. So we need to signpost better. I think the other thing, James, is we need to celebrate entrepreneurship more.
Yes.
I think it's still a bit of a dirty word in the UK compared with America. People that fail in business over here, well, that's terrible, and you better go and do something else. In America, it's a stepping stone to learning and eventual success.
It's almost a badge of honor. I mean, you're not a real entrepreneur if you haven't had a couple of failures in America.
Yes.
Whereas here, it doesn't feel quite the same.
So let's have more conferences. Let's get the messages out in books and business magazines and celebrate those successes and role models.
How do you think we can sort of make entrepreneurship more interesting to younger people? I'm thinking kids at school. That's because a lot of people who come on the podcast started doing things or trading in some way or other when they're sort of still at school, which is really interesting. Or working.
I was selling white rabbits aged 6, running a rabbit kennels aged 8, became a children's magician aged 10.
So you really did take the rabbit out of the hat. So how do we encourage that, perhaps? Because it seems that begins a trajectory that leads to what you did.
There's some really encouraging statistics. 62% of secondary school pupils would be interested in running their own business. Only 16% ever do it, and that's because only in 34% of the 4,200 secondary schools in the UK do we talk about enterprise and entrepreneurship. So there's a big opportunity there. The career and enterprise company, entrepreneurship is not a career. So we're actively engaged with them in hoping to do a pilot in the northeast of England with 15 schools. And that would make entrepreneurship a career, and it would be put on the career hub. We would test out the program. If it works, we then roll it out across every school in the UK.
So it's not defined as a career, entrepreneurship, like medicine might be. But you're going to change that.
Hopefully. And
well, that'd be good. I would applaud that, Richard. So is that on the cards quite soon? Because if that was in every school, I think that would make a real difference.
Pretty confident that that's going to happen as a pilot in the northeast next year.
Fantastic. So, I mean, the government talks a lot about growth and the importance of some entrepreneurs in the economy. That's one thing that might be happening. Are there other things that you would urge them to do or not do, as the case may be, to get the economy moving and to get more people starting businesses?
I think the other pieces are we need to sort out our planning system. So anybody that's looking at getting planning consent for a new commercial premises, opening a new restaurant, that can take now 15 months was an example that I heard this morning when I was in a focus group with mid-sized entrepreneurs. So we've got to get that sorted out. And then the other one is bringing down energy costs, which can be a big cost for business.
Now, I had a planning application. It took 1.5 years and it came back totally approved. I could have been approved in a week. So it's interesting, isn't it?
Think of the extra jobs that you could have created in that time to put in that building.
Yeah, so that's really important. I mean, there's been a lot of talk about doing that. Do you sense things are actually moving?
I hope so.
Yeah.
We definitely need to get that sorted out.
Yeah, no, I agree. Now, the other business venture you have is Growth Partner, which is an investment vehicle, as I understand. Would you tell me a little bit about that? And because I think you've very interestingly, you've invested a lot in retail and sort of high street businesses, and I want to understand what you see there and why you're doing that.
I started my journey with Growth Partner about 10 years ago and thought I never want to work in any other business other than HomeServe as chief exec, and I ended up doing it for 30 years. But I didn't want to go from working flat out to doing nothing if I ever decided to leave HomeServe, as I ultimately did. So I wanted to back other entrepreneurs at an earlier stage in their career with my own money.
Right.
And I like retail because retail is detail. And if I hadn't done HomeServe, then I would have liked to have been a retailer. I know consumer from my marketing days at Procter & Gamble. I was the marketing assistant on Fairy Liquid. That's why my hands are still so soft. I was the
still working for them. Huh?
I was the brand manager on Vortex Bleach, which that business didn't ultimately work. It was killed by Unilever's Domestos. So when people describe my career, it's from the toilet pan to down the drain with HomeServe.
Well, if it gives you any comfort, I worked years ago at Saatchi & in advertising, and I did the advertising for Head & Shoulders shampoo, another Procter & Gamble product. You just need to look at me to see where that ended up. So that was, but I think it's interesting. Procter & Gamble is obviously a great training I mean, we've had several people on the podcast who have spent their early career at Procter & Gamble and done brilliantly since.
Yeah, gone off to do, a great example was an ex-colleague of mine in HomeServe that was previously Procter & Gamble, Greg Jackson, left HomeServe. We worked together for 3 years and got a check for 20 million to set up Octopus Energy.
Exactly, that's one of the people I was thinking of. So, and you're another. So it's a good place to learn in terms of your.
I like consumer, retail, leisure businesses,
Right,
and they're out of fashion today. There is very little private equity money backing those sorts of businesses, but I think it's really important to do that. And there are some real bargains out there, and retail is really, really important.
So you said consumer, retail, and leisure. So how many companies have you backed now with Growth Partners?
Backed 15 with about 100 million of my own money. This is all minority investing. So it's their businesses and I'm showing them, but I'm never telling them.
So you obviously made the decision to be a minority investor. I mean, that was your journey with HomeServe, I guess, and it worked out very well. And
Yes.
You've got 15 of these, but you have no power ultimately to exit any of them, do you, I suppose? So you're just patient capital here. You're taking a long view. Is that it?
Yeah, those businesses will want to exit at some point. We've only exited one business so far.
And was that successfully?
Yeah, it's a business called Enterprise Nation, and we got a 7 times return.
Fantastic. So that persuaded you to do some more, I guess. So retail, I mean, looking at a lot of high streets and towns up and down Britain, they don't look in particularly good shape. I mean, some do, but a lot don't. You know, there's a lot of empty properties, sort of suboptimal shops, I guess, without going into detail. What's your take on what's going on? And you obviously still find the space appealing, but how can it sort of progress in a positive way?
I think the magic model is my step number 4, bricks and clicks and paper. And what I mean by that is omni-channel model.
Right.
So retailers need to have an online business as well. They should also be doing direct mail. Cast your mind back, James, to your doormat at home. Think about how much direct mail you got 10 years ago.
Yes.
And how much you get now. Significantly less, because many businesses have stopped doing direct mail, and therefore you get a bigger share of the doormat. Remember when Johnny Bowden, the clothing
Well, he was in
guy,
he was in that chair just a few weeks ago, yeah.
and I bet he said he stopped printing his catalogues, got rid of the direct mail, the revenue plummeted, he called himself a nitwit, and he started sending out his brochures again.
He did. And he's doing very, very well. So
there's a great example, but the wine company,
bricks, clicks and paper.
Sweaty Betty, a business that I reinvested in when HomeServe was sold, Checkatrade.
Yeah.
Do you know the jingle? You're going to sing it to us?
No, you sing it to me, Richard.
Checkatrade.com.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah.
We put out 16 million A4 folded leaflets 6 times a year through UK letterboxes. And that bit of paper has tracked telephone numbers of trades that UK consumers can call, but it generates significant number of clicks to our online marketplace. So a great example of paper generating clicks.
Right.
So back to the high street, the businesses that are winning, will win, are the ones that are multi-channel.
Multi-channel. But are there enough of those to make the high street an attractive place to visit? That's what I'm sort of
Hopefully, I think lots more activity-based businesses springing up. Escape rooms, low-cost gyms. I'm invested in one of those called Cinegym. We're only in Spain. It was a copy of Pure Gym here in the UK. And it was at the HomeServe alumni evening that I came across an ex-HomeServe employee that was a regretted loss. And he said he'd copied the Pure Gym model, opened 12 gyms in Spain, and he was looking for an investor to put in €6 million. And I said, that's me. 5 years later, we've gone from 12 gyms to 120.
In Spain.
And these guys are opening one new gym every 6 days. Amazing.
And they're called Sinner, as in...
Synergym, SYN.
SYN. So that's fantastic. So you've got several of these ventures now.
So that's the activity-based one.
Yeah.
The other area is that I know a bit about is home improvements.
Yes.
So over 50% of people that are doing a major home improvement, and by that I would mean a new kitchen or new bathroom or new windows, they want to go and see it. So another reason to do high street retail is people to go and see those kitchens or bathrooms or flooring. So I'm invested in a amazing business called Easy Bathrooms, and we've gone from 40 showrooms to 140. We don't put those on the high street because the rents are too high. Those are next door to Screwfix on the industrial park, but big showrooms where we're showcasing and showing 40 individual bathroom suites.
So people would come and have a look and then they'd pick one. So it's having that mix again.
And now, big believer in vertical integration. So we're buying from all the factories in China. And then we were selling both to trade and to homeowners in the Easy Bathroom stores. Now we also do the installation. So it's an end-to-end service for the homeowner.
So you say you're a big believer in vertical integration. Is that because of your HomeServe experience?
Yes.
Explain what you mean by that for people who may not immediately understand.
Yeah, owning more of the value chain. Really believe that any business needs to own the end customer because that's where the cash profit and the highest margins are. But in HomeServe to start with, we would get our underwriter of the risk, the home assistance policies, to answer the claims calls, and it was originally their subcontract repairer network that we used. We then bought them out of their claim centre, and then we acquired the subcontract network, and then we added directly employed plumbers.
Right.
And made sure that the deal with the water utilities that we were working with, that we were paying them an annual commission, delivering great service, but that we owned the customer. We had the relationship. We were doing the monthly billing by direct debit.
So you're emphasizing here the importance of owning the customer, having that relationship.
And doing more of what you can do for that customer rather than just taking a bit of the value chain.
Yeah, and you'd focus on that before getting more customers in a sense. Or I guess ideally you do both, but
yes,
yeah, in terms of the model.
I think doing it in the right order, and business is about prioritization. It's also about having a not to-do list.
A not to-do list. This is another one of your...
For an entrepreneur,
it's steps, is it? Yeah, not to do. Tell me about that.
Far more difficult to have and far more important to have a not to-do list than a to-do list.
So what's on your not to-do list, Richard?
I've learned that doing mergers and acquisitions that is 2 steps away from what you're currently got as your business model is the wrong thing to do. So I look back at my HomeServe days and said, we got into doing furniture warranties for retailers.
Right.
Wasn't utility and a bit far removed from covering somebody's pipes and wires and boiler.
Right. Was that an acquisition then? You did that? Oh, right.
Yes. And that ultimately didn't work out.
Yeah.
We went and we said, well, if we're covering the things that are not covered by a household insurance policy, why don't we work for the home insurers like Aviva and others and do the things that are covered? So we'll be a supplier to the major insurance companies. And that didn't work. They were only prepared to pay a low single-digit margin to do the repairs. And that was not as attractive as just focusing back on our magic core home assistance model.
Yeah. Any other not to dos stand out for you? I'm getting some
it's-
value here.
I think it's just about remaining really focused.
Right.
And every business needs to write their strategy in one sentence of no more than 20 words. And it should answer 3 killer questions. First one is, what's your purpose? What are you passionate about in your business? Second one is, what can you be the best at? Even if you copied a competitor, how can you be that little bit better? What's your unique selling proposition? And then thirdly, what's your monetization model? What's your economic engine? How are you going to make money?
And you get all that in 20 words.
Answer that in 20 words. And here goes.
That's hard.
We did it in Business Leader about 8 months ago when I was the interim chief exec before our great new chief exec, Sean Prime, joined. And we said, at Business Leader, we inspire our founder and CEO members to fast forward their growth through unique content and facilitated learning.
And that's your business model at the end.
All of the 30 people in Business Leader know that by heart. They probably also got it pinned to their desk or as a screensaver. And they say, is what I'm doing today, this week, this month, this year, does it fit with that statement? And if it doesn't, they need to stop doing it and put that activity on their not to-do list.
Right. Well, that's really, really clear and very helpful. But that how long did it take you to come up with that? Did you just write that down, or was it a difficult sort of cogitation?
This has been the journey of taking the many mistakes that I made in my 30 years, then first of all turning them into a little booklet, which originally was the How to Make $1 Billion, the 8 Secrets.
Right.
And I'm a great believer, James, in market research.
Right.
And my research was getting that booklet out to 4 other entrepreneurs that had all built £1 billion businesses and said, tell me honestly, are these the right 8 secrets?
Right.
Did you do them, and in what order?
Right.
And have I missed any?
Right.
And this was Greg Jackson at Octopus Energy. This was James Watt at Brewdog, Ben Francis at Gymshark.
Yeah.
And they said 2 things, Richard. Number 1 is don't call them secrets, because if you want to get them out there, they won't be secrets.
Right.
So that's why we called them steps.
Yeah.
And then you've missed one. And that is the personal characteristics of the entrepreneur.
Right.
And I've called that hone your character. And the reason is...
Which step is that of the 9?
That is step number 9.
Number 9. So we're at number 9.
Because you sort of...
So hone your character. Come on, tell me more.
You come back to that. And I spent the best part of 30 years at HomeServe making sure that we did performance review meetings twice a year. Everybody filled in a 3-page form saying, what have you achieved? What are you really good at, your strengths? And what are your weaknesses or areas for improvement? And guess what happens? People leave those meetings and they're miserable because they only think about the things that they're not very good at. And I had a massive list of all the things that I'm not very good at. And hone your character says, let's just focus on the things that we're really good at. Forget about the weaknesses. We'll hire people to do the things that we're not good at. And then we can be even better and hone our strengths. And that is the magic model. And then let's not save all this up for performance reviews every 6 months. Let's do that 1-minute feedback of catching somebody doing something amazing and telling them in 60 seconds in public. And then taking somebody aside into a meeting room and saying, I was really disappointed by that meeting. Thought we spent a lot of time. We didn't have a proper agenda. The papers only went out a day ago, badly written. And I really think next time we have a meeting like that, we need to be better prepared. So the 1-minute reprimand.
1 minute, positive or negative. So that's hone your character. May I ask, how do you approach that yourself? Where do you see your strength or your focus?
I think I've got 3 behaviours and instilled those as values in HomeServe. And the first one was courage. And I think occasionally you've got to have the courage of your convictions, like going out and paying an awful lot of money to buy Checker Trade because I thought it was the magic model that would evolve HomeServe. And it's coming good right now. It's taken us longer, but there's a fantastic business there that's growing like mad, reinventing how consumers do home improvements and repairs and helping trades to grow their businesses. Second one, I think, is persistence. And I remember when HomeServe was struggling in America. I got a great chief exec out there, but it was going really slowly. And I came across a Brit that had made it big in America called Nigel Morris, the co-founder of Capital One, the credit card company.
Right.
I thought he's the guy that can really help me to crack America. So I emailed him, no response. Sent him a direct mail letter, still ignored me. DHL, package, urgent, confidential. Still didn't hear from him. One evening, and it was 11 o'clock UK time. He lived in Washington, DC. And 6 o'clock time over there. I didn't have his mobile number, but I had his office number. And I rang it. And lo and behold, he answered his office phone himself. Said, "You don't know me, Nigel. I'm a struggling British entrepreneur trying to make it big in America. And I just need an hour of your time." And he said, "Oh, I now remember you." He said, "Persistence pays. Next time we're in America, I'll give you an hour of my time." I said, "It just so happens, Nigel, I'm in Washington, DC tomorrow afternoon." And of course I wasn't. I got on the first flight out of Heathrow and I was sitting in his office at 2 p.m. the following afternoon, and he gave me 2 hours of his time and he helped me crack America.
Fantastic. I love that story. So yeah, that's number 2, persistence.
And number 3 is integrity. And I don't mean hopefully honesty, because hopefully in business we take that for granted. I mean confronting the brutal facts. And I think we don't always do that, and we need to. How many of us have somebody that's worked for us for a long time that maybe the business is now outgrown, and we've avoided having that difficult conversation to say, "I think you're great. We've worked together for 10 years, but now is the right time to move on. You're going to do really well somewhere else. I'm going to give you a great reference and a bit of money to leave, but your time is up here. But let's keep in touch and remain friends." And I've avoided over the years those difficult conversations for too long. We have to confront the brutal facts and have those conversations right now.
So that's something you've learned in your career.
Yes.
I'm interested that you call that integrity. It's a good way of thinking about it. I haven't thought of it in that way quite before, but you're just seeing what's there and addressing it.
And doing it in a nice way.
Yeah.
I think I value kindness in business, and but doing it for the benefit of that individual that will be successful somewhere else. But that role now needs somebody that is bigger and more experienced than them.
Yes. Your calling America at 6 o'clock was very clever. Good timing, because I remember learning that years ago. You want to call early or late when the assistants aren't there to pick up the phone, and people hate phones ringing.
Exactly right.
I'll pick them up. So that's a good tip for people listening as well. Although it's harder now, I think, because people don't have office lines so much. It's more mobile, and if you don't have the number, you don't have the number.
Yeah, I can't think when was the last time I used a landline.
Cold calling someone in that way now is much more difficult. But the direct mail is still, I often say to people sending a CV, or if you're looking to work for someone, write to them, send them a letter, like old school.
And also, if you're trying to get in touch with the chief exec, owner of a business to sell your services, that could be B2B, and we've talked a lot about consumer. But if you're a business selling to a business, try testing a direct mail shot, sending it to the home address of that director rather than the office.
Right.
Much more likely to make it from the doormat at home onto the kitchen table or the coffee table and get opened at the weekend, rather than somebody in the office opening it up, putting it in the bin.
Interesting. That's another good tip. So obviously in a career journey, it's not all plain sailing, is it? We experience hard moments, failures. I mean, have you had any valuable lessons of that sort in your working life?
So many mistakes. And I think one of the big ones was around going and doing acquisitions to try and grow the business faster. And we didn't need to. We got distracted and should have focused on the core. So going and buying a furniture warranty business that we paid £40 million for. And I was horrified about a year ago because I read the memoir of my first chairman, great guy called Lindsay Berry. He was chairman of South Staff's Water Group. And he very flatteringly called me an entrepreneur of genius, which was definitely not true. But he also wrote that HomeServe was doing so well that when I came up with a harebrained idea of going and buying Regency Warranty Group for £40 million, they knew it was the wrong thing to do, and they didn't have the courage to tell me that not to do it.
Oh, this was a memorandum he'd written.
This was in his memoir, and it was the first time that I knew that the board didn't want to do the deal, but they didn't confront the brutal facts and say, Richard, stupid idea, 2 steps removed from what you're doing, and we're not going to do it. I've had chairmen after that told me exactly that. Going into Brazil or India with HomeServe, stupid idea, too difficult, and the answer's no.
Right.
And I listened and took the advice and probably was a little bit pissed off for a day or two, and then got back focused again and got over it. So I was horrified when I read that.
Yeah, so the brutal truth point works both ways, doesn't it? You want to hear it as well.
Yes.
Yeah. So I feel we're sort of coming towards the end of our conversation. I mean, you've given us lots of good tips, but what would be your biggest piece of advice to an entrepreneur who already has a business up and running, one of these mid-sized businesses, who wants to move it, in the famous words of the Jim Collins book, from good to great? How would you suggest they best proceed?
Step number 5, James, and that is hire your replacement. That was a breakthrough with HomeServe. So I was 8 years into HomeServe and hired somebody in business development. After a year, I thought they've done an amazing job. And you know what? I think I'm a rubbish MD and they could do my job better. This was when we were only a UK business.
Right.
So I called this guy into my office and said, Jonathan, you're promoted. I'm giving you my job. That then meant I could work on the business rather than in the business, and started thinking about, I wonder whether HomeServe would work in a foreign country. And ultimately it did. And then the magic model was hiring great proven chief execs in each of those 9 other countries.
Right.
And that then meant I could work on business development, the vision and the strategy, and thinking about international, knowing that we got great chief execs that were growing each of the countries and delivering amazing customer service.
Well, I'm so pleased you've mentioned recruitment as such an important aspect of success at the end of our conversation.
Let me say one other thing then, James, and that is, in the early days, I used to have a black book and I'd write down names of people that I'd met thinking, I want to think about what job I could recruit them in for. Now I would say to every mid-sized entrepreneur, use a headhunter, use a recruiter, because they know how to do it. Make sure that you find the right one and the right individual in that recruiter, and they will help you to scour the market, find the right candidates, and that is so, so important.
That's really good advice. And I think you can have, really good partnerships with recruiters, in my experience. That can work really well.
Absolutely.
And in your experience, make a huge difference. That's what you're saying. So that individual you made managing director, which enabled you to go and develop the business around the world. Was that someone you already had in the business? Or was that someone you hired in?
Yeah, I'd met him socially and thought, smart guy. Saved up for 6 months until I could afford to hire him as business development director in the UK. Or it was more about having the courage to recruit somebody that was expensive and senior when we're only 7 years into HomeServe. And 25 years later, I'm proud to say he still works at HomeServe. And he's the chairman of our joint venture with Mitsubishi in Japan.
Fantastic. So that works out very well indeed. So are there any other last to finish tips that you would want to share? Is there anything else that I haven't asked you that you feel would be helpful for people to know?
I think we sort of touched on them, but maybe just summarize them and say there is a role for international development, but many businesses in the UK do it too early. They're seduced by an opportunity or several opportunities. And it can be quite dangerous if you take your eye off the ball of growing the UK business. So don't wait too long, but don't do it too early. And make sure when you do international that you've got somebody that is running the UK really well. Right. Second one would be mergers and acquisitions is a great way to develop the business. I think I heard you say, James, that you did one and no more than that.
Well, we weren't very good at it, Richard.
We were terrible at it where it was not related to the core business, but where we bought home assistance policy businesses, probably 40 of them, everyone worked well. And then when we evolved the business model from doing the emergency repairs and the boiler services to replacing the boilers, we went out and we bought about 200 small heating, ventilating and air conditioning installer businesses across 5 different countries, and they all worked really well. But that was a very tight model, really well run. So there is a role for mergers and acquisitions. And then that other point about vertical integration, see whether there's a way that you can evolve the model to cover more of that value chain.
And you did all 3 of those things effectively. So
not all at the same time. And I'd probably look back and say we should have been even more focused. And if I hadn't had those entrepreneurial distractions, because I think every entrepreneur, including me, is like a fox. We're always looking for the next opportunity, and we need to be hedgehogs. When somebody comes along with a harebrained idea, we put up our prickles, we ignore the idea, and we keep going in a methodical direction, just executing.
So your message is more hedgehog, less fox. Is that right?
Every entrepreneurial fox needs to hire their hedgehog.
Okay, so it's a partnership.
Yeah, because back to that hone your character, you can't, if you're naturally a fox, you're never going to be a hedgehog, but you can hire one. The job of the hedgehog is to tell you, no, get that on the not to do list. That's a stupid idea, Richard.
But there's a good dynamic here, which I'm now visualizing between hedgehog and fox. But I am going to fire my last 2 questions at you, which I ask everybody at the end of my podcast. The first, because at Reed we love Mondays, is what gets you up on a Monday morning?
The passion to do the only thing that I'm good at. And I could sum that up in 2 words, and that's my career objective for my final 25 years in business before I die, and that is inspire breakthrough. And I hope I did that with my team in HomeServe. If you went to talk to any of those 10 chief execs, they did it rather than me, and I wanted to inspire breakthrough in other entrepreneurs. So on a Monday morning, I think, there's a lot to sort out in this country. We can't leave it up to any government. We need to take it into our own hands. We only have 7,500 large companies, and we need to double that. And the way we're going to do it is by helping those mid-sized companies become big ones.
So you're super clear about your personal mission. Inspire breakthrough. I'm sure you've gone some way to doing that just talking to me now, because I feel inspired by many of your messages. My last question is, where do you see yourself in 5 years' time?
That Business Leader will have 7,500 mid-sized entrepreneurs on our growth program. That will already be showing the results of those businesses going from medium-sized to large. That hopefully will have launched Business Leader in America. And I would like to crack America twice.
Yeah, I love the idea of the Americans reading a British business magazine.
But they're crazy about peer groups, coaching, mentoring, master classes, under the bonnet, all the things that our Business Leader members get. I run a growth workshop in my home in Marylebone for anybody that's turning over more than 3 million. I do one of those every week. I love doing them. And those entrepreneurs get a lot out of that, I hope. And I'd like to take that to America.
Fantastic. Well, Americans are very interested in business. We know that because a lot of people in America listen to our podcast. So I hope you succeed in that, absolutely. And look forward to seeing that happen. Thanks so much, Richard. Thanks,
James. Really enjoyed that.
So did I. It's a pleasure.